Good morning, everyone. As you know that we are having our live streaming service this morning, and we appreciate you joining us and worshiping with Christians around this country as well as those who are part of our local congregation. So thank you so much for being here and tuning in live this morning. So thank you so much. It's great to be here. Even though we may not be in the building, we are still the church, and we are out in the community making a difference during this time in our country. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have you ever met anybody who imposes upon you? Somebody that is demanding, wanting their own way, somebody that does not get the social clues that they are imposing themselves on you, and they are forcing themselves on you, that they are over the top in some of their requests. I remember eating lunch with a friend of mine some time ago, and we were at a restaurant, and this person kept calling me, and he knew I was eating lunch with my friend in the local town, but he called me like 3 times on my cell phone, and I never picked up. I typically, when I'm eating lunch with somebody, will never pick up my cell phone unless it's my wife. But this person kept calling and calling and calling. Finally, he called my friend. He called my friend's cell phone and asked him to pass me his cell phone so he could tell me something. After all these months, honestly, I can't recall what he needed. I can't remember what was the point of that phone call because it really wasn't that important. He wasn't dying, he wasn't falling into sin, and he wasn't going to lose his soul. And he wanted to tell me something that really was not pertinent. He could have called, left a message, could have texted me, but he was being demanding of my attention when I was with somebody else. I think we've been around people like that, where they believe that their stuff is more important than everybody else's stuff. You kind of see this story of being imposing in Luke chapter 7, verses 2 to 10. And let's look at this story of the centurion and how Jesus heals his servant. Now, a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." And Jesus went with him, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore, I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. This story is actually foreshadowing the Gentile mission that we're going to see lived out in Acts. In the book of Acts, you have in chapter 10 the story of Peter needing to go to the centurion named Cornelius. And he doesn't want to go originally because the Jews considered the Gentiles kind of beneath dirt, and that would be an insult to dirt. And so for Luke to tell this story of how Jesus ministers to this man who's a centurion, who's a Gentile, and even the Jews in this story will advocate for him. Luke is foreshadowing what God is seeking to do as he seeks to spread the gospel to all nations, to all people are going to be invited in to embrace Jesus Christ. So you have this kind of foreshadowing, this hedging, this hinting around that God is going to be working with the Gentiles. Let's look at how this story unfolds. Luke chapter 7, verse 4 to 5. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him, earnestly saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." There's a good chance that the centurion goes to the Jewish leaders because he knows that there's a chance that Jesus is not going to bless him. He's not going to work with him. He understands some of the dynamics of the culture of that day. And there's more possibility of Jesus listening to the Jewish leaders. But the Jewish leaders come to Jesus and impose themselves on Christ to help this man. This is a story of reversal. Typically, a Jew would have nothing to do with a Gentile, would have no contact with them. But these leaders are willing to impose themselves on Christ on his behalf. Why? Because he's a worthy man. He is a good man. You have the centurion in Luke chapter 7 in this story, as well as Acts chapter 10. The centurion Cornelius is a good man. Sometimes we think the lost are not found and the found are not lost. But we don't understand which buckets people fall into. We judge people on where they stand. But in this case, you have the leaders who consider themselves to be found going to Jesus on behalf of this lost man. But this man is the man who has great faith. This is the man that Jesus wants to bless because he is a good person. And so the leaders come to Jesus and implore him, saying, "Help him. He has loved our nation. He has built our synagogue." They're willing to help because he has helped them. Reminds me of a book I was reading some years ago by Zig Ziglar, and he's kind of a motivational speaker. And I remember this person I met on a mission trip one time, and he was talking about some of the motivational literature that he enjoyed, and he actually sent me tapes of this guy, Zig Ziglar, and I listened to him, and there was this quote in there that I really enjoyed. "You will get all you want in life if you help enough people get what they want." There's people who are always imposing themselves on us, people who are willing to take, but we as Christians need to be the ones who give of ourselves. I remember some years ago, a person called me up, a fellow preacher, and preachers will do this every now and then to me. They will call me up and say, Matthew, do you think you could review my new book? Could you write in maybe the Rocky Mountain Christian or the Gospel Advocate? Can you do a review of my book? A lot of times, this one guy called me up, and he didn't say nice things. He didn't check to see how I was doing, check on the family, say some kind words of appreciation. He literally called me up and said, "Hey, I just finished my new book. Can you review it? And then when you do, just send the $15. So he's calling me up, telling me I needed to review his book, and for that privilege, I got to send him $15. And I was sitting there thinking, what nerve? Who does this guy think he is that he would impose himself on me to such a level? Didn't seem to care a bit about what I was doing, but he was very concerned about what he want it. This is not the mindset of the centurion here. Look at Luke chapter 7, verse 6 to 8. And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore, I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. This is a powerful man. The centurion is over about 100 soldiers, and his job is to make sure that they're cared for, that he has people who work under him, and he is in charge of their livelihood. And he understands the principle of authority. Even though he's powerful, even though he has authority, he doesn't become authoritative. Even though he has power, he's not pushy. He is respectful of Jesus, and he's submissive to Jesus. He understands that Jesus is powerful, that God has the ability to heal this servant. And so he doesn't demand on him. He wants to make sure that he doesn't cause Jesus to become unclean. Because in that day, if Jesus goes to his house, those surrounding Christ would consider him unclean. He went to a Gentile's house. And so he wants to request. He wants to be considerate. He wants to ask with humility. I think this is amazing about this character. This man is powerful, but he is kind. This man has authority, but he's compassionate. This is a man that has power, but he uses it to bless others. And this is what happens here. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. This is the reversal. The Jews come to Jesus, imploring, imposing upon him, and they think that they have a better chance of Jesus healing this man's servant because of their kind of power, their privilege, their position in the Jewish nation. They think since we're countrymen, Jesus is more likely to heal this servant because of us. But that's not the case. Jesus heals this servant because of the Gentile, because of his faith, because of his belief in Jesus' power to save this servant. Sometimes when we think about ourselves, where do we place ourselves? Are we the ones that are imposing, or are we the one being respectful? And we think we can sometimes get people to do favors or get people to do what we want based on privilege and position. But really, that's not how people operate. This man comes with kindness. This man comes with a request. This man is believing in Christ, and that's why Jesus performs this miracle. But in this story, it's easy for us as Americans to miss the point. Because we think about privilege. We think about position. We think about power. That's an American construct. But that's not the main point of this story. We overlook the person who is blessed the most. The slave is the one who's blessed. The slave is the one that is now going to have quality of life. You have, typically, when we read this story, we think of the centurion's faith, and we think about the Jewish leaders who come to Jesus, and we think about what Jesus has done. But the slave is the one that is blessed. He is the one that is given the privilege here. And we can look over him in this story and not even pay attention, because he is the weakest one in the story, but he is the one that receives the blessing. Power, privilege, and position are here for us to be a blessing to others, for us to be a blessing to this world. It's not so that we can impose on others. It's not so that we can be demanding. It's so that we can make a difference for the weak, for those who are underprivileged. It's for those who need help. That's why we use the blessings God has given to us to bless the world around us. But sometimes people aren't aware of how they are being perceived by others. I was reading about a study by two individuals, Oliver Sheldon and David Dunning. And these two scientists did a little study with MBA, Masters of Business, MBA students at a graduate school. So these individuals are all highly trained people. They all had 6 years of real life and business experience. And so they gave them this test on EQ, emotional quotient, your ability to kind of see how you operate with people, your ability to be intelligent in dealing with emotions and people skills. And so they did this test to see who would score well and who would score low. What's fascinating is that after the test, they would give a resource, like a book, for a small cost at a discount to see who would buy it and for those who wanted to learn more. The people who scored the lowest on EQ were the most likely to reject the offer of the book. Those who needed the help most rejected the help the most often. This is amazing. We need to be aware of ourselves that we aren't the person who is imposing. We are the ones that have used our power and privilege to hurt others. We need to be self-aware of how we are treating the people around us. The centurion that many thought were lost, he's actually the one that is found, because he's the one that is using his authority to bless others. The invitation this week is this. During these times, how can you use your privilege, your opportunity to bless the world? Let us go out into our communities and make a difference for good this week.